Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another build video for Lorerim, a rather large mod list, 4,000 mods, for Skyrim Anniversary Edition. It's become somewhat of an obsession, so I asked you guys what build we should do next, and you chaps and chapettes chose the Nightblade, and oh boy did we have some fun with this one. Like trying to one-shot all the major bosses in the game. And well, that's exactly what I did. Live on stream, by the way. Make sure that you pop in some time to say hello. It's usually where we get all our testing done for upcoming builds. It's often quite not as easy as it looks to get these kind of one-shots, as you need to figure out how to be able to disengage and re-engage, but it is definitely satisfying. So if that piques your interest, or you're just sick and tired of the Nords and furries telling you that stealth is trash in Lorerim, then buckle up Dovahkiin as we bring out the cloak, the dagger, and some big damn juicy crits. This is the Nightblade. So what exactly is a Nightblade? In the lore, they're magically assisted assassins, using spell and shadow to thrive in conflict and misfortune. For this guide, we'll be adding Vampirism to the mix, as it perfectly complements the build's strengths such as destruction, illusion and stealth. A disclaimer, this build does take some time to reach its full potential, but power is earned and taken in Lorerim, not given freely, and that's a good thing. I will however try to guide you as best as I can to give you a running head start. Or in our case, crouching. Please keep in mind that this is from a metagaming perspective. I will not be role-playing, and of course, play at your own pace, but this is what I do to get started. We're picking Dunmer for our race for the fire res bonus, and Proudspire Manor for a locational choice. I'll get to that later. Here's the starting gear I recommend. Make sure that you loot Proudspire clean and dry, and then sell everything that you can, while also buying yourself a backpack and a basic camp. That should give you more than enough chunk of change to get yourself over to Whiterun and head over to Dragon's Reach to pick up the Absorb Knowledge book, which can sometimes be clipped into the floor or underneath the table and stuff. Just use it to get all the XP from the books. Join the companions and take a couple of quests, but we're going to head straight over to the college, enroll and then get yourself some spell vouchers, and then pick up Blend and Muffle. These are important for your stealth. And boom, it is time to level up. Our main goal is to get Destruction, Alteration, Sneak, Illusion, One-Handed and Evasion as high as we can, although we want to prioritize getting Destruction to level 50 first over everything else. I then think the priority should be getting your Sneak to 50, Alteration to 50, then One-Handed, then Illusion, and then finally Evasion. That's the priority order. Any excess points you can put into Wayfarer is my recommendation at least, or maybe Speech. As for perks, we're going to pick Novice Destruction first and pick up Flames and Crackle. Next we'll follow it up with Apprentice Destruction. A mandatory pick for the build is Circle of Entropy. This is our mana sustain, and Leech Health for some offensive healing. We're going straight in for Adept Destruction next, and we're picking up Flame Sphere for some AoE and Absorbing Cloak for some more health sustain. Next we're going to get Novice Alteration. Pick what you want, it doesn't matter. We're just travelling to get to Apprentice Alteration. And we're going to pick up Featherfall and Akato's Recital. Both are essential for this build. We want to get Agility and Agile Spellcasting to avoid any penalties while using Evasion. And we're going to pick up our first Stealth node and then get Arcane Assassin. Now it's time to pick up some spells outside of just perks. You're going to need to go to Enthir to pick up Draining Touch, Magicka Bolt and Nightblade. And lastly, Gather Shadows. Have this active at all times, even when you're out of combat. Next, let's discuss what traits that I take for the Nightblade, which will be taking Bad Natured for that 20% damage while crouched. This pairs perfectly with our build's heavy hitting stealth attacks, not to mention the pickpocketing might come in handy should you lean towards the Thieves Guild later in your playthrough. For our second trait, I'll take Gambler for the 50% additional crit chance at the cost of non-crits being weaker. This won't be too much of an issue as we will be critting consistently once we get started on boosting our crit with other perks in the one-handed tree. And now for birthsigns. The latest updates to Lorerim have seen some great changes to the Mage birthsigns in general. I can comfortably recommend all of them now. Mage grants 150 mana and some stronger spells, which is nice. However, I do think this might be the weaker out of the 3 options still. Apprentice now grants a ton of regen at the cost of being weaker to magic, but that is something that we can counter easily later on in the build. As for Atronach, this is still extremely strong with 30% spell absorption and up to 300 mana once mastering a school of magic. It's still a very good pick, and I'm torn between Apprentice and Atronach for this build, but I would recommend Apprentice just to keep things a little bit fresh. If no regen from Atronach doesn't sell it to you, just keep in mind that you can generate your own mana using Magicka Bolt and numerous other spells that are within this build and several others as well. So Atronach isn't really a bad pick, and the spell absorption will save your arse a lot of the time when enemy mages are firing at you, because you just gain mana back and can keep draining to get your health back. Now that we're fully set up, it's time for us to get our first major power spike, Vampirism. We want this for attribute stacking and for the powers that come with it, along with Vampiric Drain being scalable into the late game. To get this, we're going to go back to Proudspire Manor and head down to the cellar, where there's a little trapdoor that leads to the sewers. From here we're going to take this path, as you can see, and there will be some rats that you'll need to take care of. Once dispatched, head through the door and across the bridge and up these stairs here. You're now going to be playing cat and mouse with a vampire, hoping that they will grant the curse of vampirism via their Vampiric Drain spell. Once you've acquired the curse, head back up to Proudspire Manor. Press the home button on your keyboard to access D menu and advance time so that you can progress your vampirism disease to actually fully fledged vampirism. I had forgotten to mention deities earlier, but I recommend Molag Bal for the drain to all attributes when you're close to enemies. You can stay with Molag Bal, or by the endgame change to Hermaeus Mora for more utility. Let's talk about our combat loop and spell rotation during the early game. Circle of Entropy is how we're going to be able to cast our spells. It works especially well outside of combat. We use this to recover our mana while casting heavier spells like Muffle, Blend and Nightblade. Muffle and Blend are there for our detection range, and Nightblade is to close the gap and deal some crazy damage. I do want to show you here Nightblade not working correctly. This is due to the enemy being leaned against a wall. It struggles to have a pathing issue here, but we recover after the guy gets alerted. You might notice this giant obnoxious red cloud. This is Absorbing Cloak. This is triggered through Akata's Recital once we enter combat. I don't use this long term, but it is really helpful at this stage of the game. Thanks to the Arcane Assassin perk, while we're not in combat, while stealthed, we are able to cast spells silently, so we can pre-buff again for our next target. Holding shift and activate on the recently deceased can drain what little blood is left of them, keep your vampirism sated. Playing stealthy is one thing, and Nightblade will certainly do its job. However, sometimes you will alert enemies at lower levels here, and when that happens, you're best off falling back on Vampiric Drain. This does incredible damage, it keeps you healed, and it scales with your Vampiric progression too. For in-combat mana sustain, I'm using Magicka Bolt, which deals damage and provides Magicka in return. It's a small amount, but dual wielding this provides enough to get back to blasting with Vampiric Drain if the bolts don't kill the enemy first. Once you have this combat loop down, you should have no issues with highly populated bandit camps, so I recommend the Companions Radiant quests from Farkas and Ayala, along with the Major Companions quest Proving Honor. This was my main source of XP to level. Feel free to do whatever you like. I would recommend staying away from the main quest until after Dawnguard, as you will be inefficient at fighting dragons at this stage. So let's jump to level 20 and show what perks you should be taking along your journey to get there. For destruction perks, I added a point in Blood Magic just to give us a bit of a boost to our Vampiric Drain. We've finally taken some nodes in Illusion. Pick whatever you like from Novice and Apprentice, and then make sure that you pick from Adept, Chameleon and Invisibility. Chameleon will give us some passive detection bonuses and invisibility to disengage with. Make sure that you take the extra point in Stealth, Death Strike and Anatomical Law. The damage boost from Stealth with this perk is just phenomenally good and is a must-have. Muffled Movement is nice for some quality of life. As for one-handed, the Mastery nodes for base damage. Penetrating Strikes is a travel node to get to Short Blade for some juicy stealth multipliers, and then Puncture for the crit. As for the Destiny perk tree, we are aiming for the Assassin node, so we're going for Endurance for stamina regen, Thief for the detection, Adrenaline for even more stamina management, Scout for power attack cost, and then we'll aim up towards Swift Shadow for movement while sneaking, and then finally Assassin for that juicy double damage with stealth attacks. It's time to get Vampire Lord. To do that, we need to get the Dawnguard questline cooking, head over to Dayspring Canyon here, have a word with the Dawnguard, and then set off to Dim Hollow Crypt. This dungeon's absolutely littered with undead and vampires. Make sure that you prioritize the vampires first, as they tend to be more of a nuisance. At this point, your stealth should be pretty good enough to be able to systematically take down most enemies without them being aware of you. Vampires tend to have a much higher detection range than these undead though, so just keep that in mind. There are also some really good, notable mini-bosses within this dungeon, one of them being this vampire here fighting a spider. Try and get the jump on him if you can, because the stealth multipliers will definitely help in taking this bad boy down. He's pretty well geared and he drops some really nice stuff as well. It is random, so what you're seeing here might not be the same for you. Good luck with this one though. If you've made it this far, congratulations, you found yourself a new useless companion with daddy issues. She's going to get in the way, waste your time with pointless dialogue, disrupt your stealthiness, and spend most of her time on the floor. Just drag her back to the castle and obtain your new vampiric power. Why is this important? Well, there's several perks that translate to human form, which we want access to, and the transformation is great at clearing certain dungeons. Make sure you've picked up the quest to refill the blood chalice and head out to get acquainted with your newly acquired power. You can equip spells assigned to your wheeler menu while transformed. Just be careful to not do it to your right hand, as there's no way to get the default spell back without reverting form and then transforming back again. Currently you'll only be able to use your Magicka Bolt to regain mana, but we will fix this with the Blood Chalice a little bit later, but let's go over the perks. We want Scion, Hemomancer and Blood from a Stone first. This is mandatory for this progression. Then we'll take Unearthly Will, and then finally Bloodstorm. Everything else you can just expand as what you like, but this is definitely mandatory. Bloodstorm changes your default right-hand spell while transformed into an impressive powerhouse that's going to make farming the next few dungeons an absolute breeze. Speaking of which, we're going to go over to our good friend Septimus and pick up his quest. We're not actually going to go to Blackreach or that dungeon in general yet, but we're going to just pick it up so we have the items. Then it's back to Redwater Den to finish off that questline for the Chalice. Now there is a room here just before the springs that has a really nasty boss with ebony armor. You want to take the right here and try and stealth attack him. If he gets wind of you and procs Blood Implosion, a spell with a red circle around you, you're basically toast because you'll never out-heal it. It's a long lingering effect. Persevere, and once you've cleared the dungeon, be sure to fill the chalice and drink from its spring to gain an active effect that grants magic back from your vampiric drain. While you still have the effect active, head straight over to Alftand Dwemer Ruins via Septimus's quest, which leads you on to Blackreach. You'll have to fight your way through tons of Dwemer constructs and Falmer to get there. If you've played this before and another character before, you'll be amazed at how we handle this. Usually there's terrors everywhere in the dark, but this time, we are the terror. Mainly because of this that we picked up. And the fact that we can't get staggered by all these dwarven constructs while transformed means that we're not hindered in any way. So I recommend flying around the entire of the Underdark, Blackreach, and then just wiping out everything that you can in order to farm as much XP as possible. There's also no worry with poison, as we are immune thanks to being a vampire. Time to perk up more in the Vamp tree. First we travel to Make Them Beautiful, which insta-pops enemies at 25% health or lower. Veil of the Night can also proc this, so we'll take this, and along with Fountain of Blood for even more sustain, and then we're just going to go to the left side to get Vampire Seed, Orb, and Vampiric Cloak. Oh, and Enchanting Spheres. Remember we picked up Crackle? Cast one Crackle and then just keep firing your main right-hand spell with Vampire Lord to easily mince down this enemy. Once you've completed all of Septimus's quests, the Augment Infinium will be yours. Read it to gain a huge boost to your chosen main stat. We're going to go with the Path of Magic for this build. This also grants you a bunch of perk points, so I'm going to show you what you should be aiming for up to level 30. To get started, we're taking Adept and Expert Alteration along with a Magic Res node. Our Adept spell picks are Bounce on Self and Transmute Muscles, neither are essential, and for our Expert picks it's Tumble Magnet and Deep Storage. Onto Illusion, we're taking Expert and Shadow Shaping and Master Shadows. This improves our Vanish spell. We're also going to pick up Mimic's Cloak and buy Fenric's Welcome. As for Stealth, we're taking another point in Arcane Assassin and Advance Anatomical Law and Light Steps. For evasion, we're finally taking the light armor training and vexing flanker for better back attacks. You might want to pick up dodge if you play predominantly in third person. As for one-handed, we're finally taking arm spellcasting, and we're taking the other nodes in short blade focus and power strike. It's time to get our endgame armor set, the New Dawn, which is a mythic Dawn set that we've got a replacer on for. I'll leave a link in the description, it's very plug and play. Modify the list at your own risk, even if it is just an armor replacer. Anyway, we're going to Red Scar Cavern. The mythic Dawn are up to no good in here, and we're going to take out as many as we can stealthily until we get to this section here with a large drop. What we're going to do is pre-buff everything we can for our stealth and Nightblade, and we're using Featherfall to drop down here. If you don't get the stealth kill on this chap, he will just out-heal everything you throw at him. So make sure you prioritize him, loot the key from the body, and then head to this door. There's a knack to opening this door, as you need to look round into the keyhole. There we are. Once through, pre-buff all of your stealth buffs and Nightblade, and make sure that you have Vampire Shadow ready to go as a power to cast. Be careful here, there are invisible Dremora enemies and lots of Mythic Dawn around as well. Once you've taken him out, use Vampire Shadow to escape, and then pick off the targets one by one if you can. Once clear, loot Vonos to get a Daedric Dagger and the New Dawn armor set. And it's literally perfect for our build. We get regen across the board, spell cost reduction for all of the schools of magic that we use, increased magicka, and 35% less damage when we absorb spells. We get inherent fire damage, and we take less fire damage and recover even more stamina on top of that. As for your endgame weapon, head to the museum in Dawnstar to start the quest to gather the pieces of Mehrunes Razor. And this little bad boy has a chance to insta-kill and is one of the highest base damage daggers in the game, second to the Blade of Woe from the Dark Brotherhood. You can also explore Mehrunes Dagon's shrine for some extra goodies. I think it's time that we get our final pieces to our Nightblade puzzle, and by that I mean taking the powers and forbidden blood magic from Lorerim's hidden bosses. So we progress the Dawnguard questline to get to Volkjær Courtyard, which then we can face down with the Night Matron. Bit of an anticlimactic fight here, as we can just one-shot him. Make sure you loot all the spell tomes, we'll get to those in a minute, as we head first on into the Soul Cairn. This place has a ton of invisible Dremora, so do be careful, but head over to this location that I've marked here. We're looking for this lovely chap called the Lord of Doom. At least he was the Lord of Doom. Now he's just, well, dead. Make sure that you loot everything from him as well, and then we will review all the spells that we've just acquired. Blood Implosion applies a damage over time that will also absorb health, and it's active for an extremely long time, making this perfect for chipping away at dragons that don't want to land. Cascading Torment is our new main heal and add clear ability, doing monstrous amounts of health absorb and lightning damage. If we need to gain some resources back, Essence Drain is our all-in-one sustainability. Combined with our regen at this stage, we should have no issues. For movement, we have Bat Form now, which bursts us forward as a cloud of bats. This procs invisibility and an iframe, which can be used to avoid heavy hits and reposition. It's also fantastic to cross vast distances extremely fast. Let's talk about bossing tactics. How to play this build efficiently when facing foes such as Archcurate Vertha. This chap is one of the biggest skill checks in the game, and downing him can be really tricky, even on this build if you don't know what you're doing, at least for the one shot. He's got a posse of Atronachs guarding him, and his detection is pretty high, so when Serana initiates combat, disengage immediately by using Bat Form and cast Muffle and Chameleon, before then casting Nightblade and getting ready to initiate combat. Then cast Invisibility when you're ready to engage, and start moving in for the kill. If you see a health bar on your approach, disengage immediately and rebuff. If he's nice and settled, make your way up to the stairs to position for a backstab. You can even climb the railings if you need to, just fingers crossed that the Atronachs aren't completely blocking his back. If they are, then bait him and then disengage again. And just hope that your shots don't whiff with Nightblade. Harkon is even easier, as while he's doing his monologue with Serana, just go straight in for the backstab. He's already dead, he just doesn't know it. Harkon also drops his armor, which is a really nice upgrade for your chest. So where are we headed with this build? Well, let's take a look at level 60 plus and the perks that I've chosen. We're grabbing the Lone Wolf perk to get that extra magic res. Sneak is completely maxed out because, of course it is, we want to lower our detection as much as possible. As for evasion, we've taken near enough everything except for the unarmored node and 1 point in athletics because it's just not necessary. For one-handed, we've taken the flurry crit nodes, power charge and relentless onslaught. As for alteration, we've got the final nodes in magical resistance, master alteration, magical absorption and these left nodes for even more spell utility. As for destruction, we've finally taken that last node in the absorb tree, consume life. Lastly, illusion, we've taken these nodes on the left to improve our invisibility, camouflage, etc. You're probably wondering what master spells I've taken, and don't worry, I'll show you in a minute. There's just one enemy left. One last foe to really fight. A boss like none other. And that's the Ebony Warrior. In order to effectively one-shot him, we're going to be using our Master Illusion spell and Master Alteration spell. Our pick is Hidden Cobra. Now this is a 1 HP curse, but we need to disengage and get out of combat. But we can't actually proc it without Sotha's Maelstrom because he has so much magic res that we need to remove it first. Nightfall I purchased from Drevis at the college after unlocking master spells with him, which grants us all the Shadow Mage spells at once if you have learned the original spells. And there we go. He's effectively ready to one-shot. It's worth noting that you can absolutely just go toe-to-toe with him if you'd like and fight him fair. The build has no issue in surviving, but it is just fun to flex. And on that note, I think it's about time for this video. Please, if you haven't already, like the video and comment below if you have any questions. I hope you enjoy one-shotting the entire world. After all that hard work, it certainly pays off. Stay tuned for more builds and stop by the stream to check out our next character, which will be a Barbarian. I'm looking forward to doing a non-magical character, just beer, music, shouts and two-handed mayhem. That's it from me now. Ciao for now.